The Forgotten Directive. The klaxon blared through the cramped corridors of the UES Pathfinder, jolting Commander Jard Harrison from his fitful sleep. He'd been dreaming of Earth again, the rolling hills of Montana where he'd grown up, so far from the cold metal walls that had been his home for the past 3 years. The emergency lighting bathed his quarters in an eerie red glow as he scrambled to his feet, muscle memory kicking in before his conscious mind could process what was happening. "Commander to the bridge, Priority Alpha," the ship's AI announced, its usually calm voice pitched with urgency. Harrison was already moving, pulling on his uniform as he sprinted through the corridors. Crew members flattened themselves against the walls to let him pass, their faces a mixture of confusion and fear. "Status report," he barked as he burst onto the bridge, where his XO, Lieutenant Commander Naomi Taekta, was bent over the sensor station. "Sir, we've detected an anomalous signal emanating from the outer reaches of the Kuiper Belt," she said, straightening up. Her eyes were wide with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "It doesn't match any known communication protocol, human or otherwise." Harrison moved to the main display, where a visualization of the signal pulsed and flowed like a living thing. "Have we attempted to decode it?" "Yes, sir," replied Ensign Victor Novak from the communications station. "It's unlike anything we've ever encountered. The patterns seem almost deliberate, but they don't correspond to any encryption we know." "The signal appeared approximately 17 minutes ago," Taekta added, "and it's growing stronger." Harrison studied the display, a knot forming in his stomach. For decades, humanity had searched the stars for signs of intelligent life. The silence had been so profound that many had begun to wonder if we were truly alone. But deep in his bones, Harrison had always known this day would come. First contact, the moment humanity would finally understand its place in the cosmos. "Sir," Novak called, his voice trembling slightly, "we're picking up mass readings, massive objects decelerating at the edge of our sensor range." The tactical display flared to life, showing multiple contacts approaching their position. Not small probes or research vessels, but enormous ships, each one dwarfing the Pathfinder by several orders of magnitude. "Battle stations," Harrison ordered, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Taekta, contact Earth Command immediately, priority ultraviolet." The bridge exploded into action as crew members rushed to their positions. Harrison settled into the command chair, eyes fixed on the approaching vessels. They moved with an unnatural grace, their hulls gleaming with an iridescent sheen that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Earth Command acknowledges, sir," Taekta reported. "Admiral Joe is requesting a direct line." Harrison nodded, and the stern face of Admiral Lin Zhou materialized on the main screen. "Commander Harrison, confirm your situation." "Admiral, we've detected what appears to be a fleet of non-human vessels approaching from the Kuiper Belt. They're massive, sir, and they're coming in fast." Zhou's expression remained impassive, but Harrison could see the tension in the set of her jaw. "Can you determine their intent?" "Negative, sir. We've detected no weapon signatures yet, but—" Harrison was cut off as the ship suddenly lurched violently to one side. Warning lights flashed across every console. "We're being scanned, sir," Taekta shouted over the din of alarms. "Some kind of energy beam, it's penetrating all our defenses." Before Harrison could respond, the ship's systems began to fail one by one. Lights flickered and died, leaving only the emergency illumination. The constant hum of the engines, so familiar that it had become almost unnoticeable, fell silent. "They've completely disabled us," Novak reported, his fingers dancing frantically over his darkened console. "All systems are offline, propulsion, weapons, even life support is running on auxiliaries." Harrison turned back to the screen, but Admiral Joe was gone, the communication cut. "Taekta, what's the status of the rest of the fleet?" She shook her head grimly. "Same as us, sir. Every ship in the outer system patrol has gone dark." A new alert sounded, and Harrison looked up to see the tactical display showing dozens more contacts emerging from what could only be some form of faster-than-light travel. They were heading directly for Earth and its colonies. "It's an invasion," he breathed, the reality of the situation settling over him like a shroud. The attack on Nueva Madrid colony happened 3 days later. By then, Earth had mobilized its meager defenses, but they might as well have been throwing stones at a hurricane. The aliens, the Valkyrie, as they called themselves in their first and only communication, struck with devastating precision. Nueva Madrid, a thriving colony of 7 million souls on one of Jupiter's moons, was reduced to slag in less than an hour. Harrison and the crew of the Pathfinder could only watch in horror as the footage reached them, their ship still drifting powerless in the void. The Valkyrie ships moved like predators, their weapons slicing through Earth's most advanced defenses as if they were made of paper. And all the while, that same strange signal continued to pulse from the depths of space, growing stronger with each passing moment. 6 weeks into the invasion, with half of Earth's orbital defenses in ruins and the colonies in the outer system falling one by one, Dr. Moira Walsh made a discovery that would change everything. Walsh was a xenoarchaeologist, specializing in theoretical alien civilizations. Before the invasion, her work had been considered fringe at best, but now she found herself at the center of humanity's desperate search for a way to fight back. She had been studying artifacts recovered from the ruins of an ancient structure on Mars, discovered decades earlier, but largely ignored as a natural formation. "It's not a coincidence," she insisted to the assembled military leaders in the underground bunker that had become Earth's de facto command center. Her red hair was pulled back in a severe ponytail, her face gaunt from weeks of sleepless nights. "The timing of the Valkyrie arrival, the signal from the Kuiper belt, it's all connected to what I found on Mars." She pulled up an image of a strange, obsidian-like object, covered in markings that resembled no known human language. "This is what I've been calling the Stygian artifact. It's over 1 million years old, and it contains a warning." Admiral Joe, who had survived the destruction of Earth's orbital headquarters, leaned forward. "A warning about what, Doctor?" "About them, the Valkyrie, or at least about something very much like them." Walsh's eyes gleamed with a mixture of fear and excitement. "The civilization that created this artifact encountered the Valkyrie long ago, and they paid a terrible price. But they also found a way to fight back, something they called the Stygian Interdiction." Harrison, who had been retrieved from the disabled Pathfinder along with his crew only days earlier, spoke up. "What exactly is this interdiction?" Walsh hesitated. "I'm not entirely sure. The language is complex and much of it is still untranslated. But from what I can gather, it's some form of weapon or defense system capable of targeting the Valkyrie's specific vulnerabilities." "And where is this weapon now?" Joe demanded. "That's just it," Walsh replied. "According to the artifact, components of the interdiction were hidden throughout this star system, deliberately placed as a failsafe in case the Valkyrie ever returned." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. 1 million-year-old weapon, hidden in the solar system, waiting to be activated against an enemy that had nearly destroyed its creators. Operation Blacklight was formed that same day, a desperate mission to locate the components of the Stygian Interdiction before the Valkyrie completed their conquest of Earth. Harrison was given command of the operation, with Dr. Walsh attached as scientific advisor. Their first lead came from the artifact itself. After weeks of painstaking translation, Walsh discovered coordinates pointing to Titan, Saturn's largest moon. With the majority of Earth's naval assets destroyed or engaged in the defense of the homeworld, they were given a single vessel, the UES Shadowfall, a stealth corvette designed for deep reconnaissance behind enemy lines. "This is a one-way trip, you understand that?" Admiral Joe told Harrison privately before their departure. "Even if you find what you're looking for, there's no guarantee you'll make it back." Harrison nodded grimly. "If we don't find it, there won't be anything to come back to anyway." The journey to Titan was a nerve-wracking dance through enemy-controlled space. The Valkyrie had established blockades around every major celestial body in the system, their sensors seemingly able to detect the slightest disturbance in the vacuum. But the Shadowfall lived up to its reputation, slipping past patrols like a ghost. Titan's surface was a frozen wasteland of methane lakes and icy mountains. Harrison led the ground team himself, with Walsh beside him and a squad of Marines for protection. They followed the coordinates to a hidden entrance beneath one of Titan's vast hydrocarbon seas, accessible only through a narrow crevice in the ice. "This is definitely artificial," Walsh breathed as they entered a vast chamber carved into the moon's crust. The walls were lined with the same obsidian-like material as the artifact, covered in the same intricate markings. Whoever built this, they weren't human. At the center of the chamber stood a device, a crystalline structure that pulsed with an inner light connected to what appeared to be a control console. Walsh approached it cautiously, her eyes wide with wonder. "This is it, a piece of the interdiction." But as she reached for the console, the chamber was suddenly flooded with harsh, white light. A trilling alarm echoed through the space, and Harrison's blood ran cold as he recognized the sound, the same alien tone that had preceded the Valtheri's first attack. "They've found us," he said, drawing his sidearm. "Walsh, get that thing working, now." The Marines formed a defensive perimeter as the sound of weapons fire echoed from the entrance tunnel. The Valtheri had followed them somehow. Perhaps they'd been watching this place all along, waiting for someone to lead them to the interdiction. Walsh worked frantically at the console while Harrison joined the defense. The Valtheri soldiers were humanoid but wrong somehow, their proportions slightly off, their movements too fluid to be natural. Their armor seemed to flow around them like liquid metal, and their weapons fired not bullets or energy beams, but something that distorted the very air it passed through. 2 Marines fell in the first exchange, their bodies crumpling in on themselves as if crushed by an invisible hand. Harrison took aim and fired, his shots seemingly having little effect until he managed to hit one of the aliens directly in what he assumed was its head. The creature collapsed, its armor suddenly rigid. "They can be killed," he shouted to the remaining Marines. "Aim for the head." The battle raged for what felt like hours, but was likely only minutes. The Marines fought with the desperation of those who knew they were humanity's last hope, and Harrison stood shoulder to shoulder with them, emptying clip after clip into the advancing Valtheri. "Commander," Walsh's voice cut through the chaos, "I've activated it, but there's a problem. This is only part of the system. There are 4 more components scattered throughout the system, and they all need to be activated in sequence." Harrison glanced back at her, then at the dwindling number of defenders. They wouldn't survive long enough to locate the other components, let alone activate them. But perhaps. "Does it say where the other components are?" he asked, ducking as an alien energy blast carved a furrow in the wall behind him. Walsh nodded frantically, tapping at the console. "Yes, I'm downloading the coordinates now." Harrison made his decision in an instant. "Lieutenant Rivers," he called to the Marine squad leader, "you and your team will escort Dr. Walsh back to the Shadowfall. Get her to Earth with those coordinates at all costs." Rivers nodded grimly, understanding what was being asked. "And you, sir?" Harrison checked his weapon, finding it nearly empty. "I'll buy you time." Walsh began to protest, but Harrison cut her off. "Humanity needs that data more than it needs me, Doctor. Go, that's an order." As Walsh and the Marines retreated toward a secondary exit that the console had revealed, Harrison turned to face the advancing Valtheri alone. He had 1 grenade left, not enough to stop them, but perhaps enough to collapse the tunnel and delay their pursuit. As he prepared to make his last stand, the crystal at the center of the chamber suddenly pulsed brighter, and a holographic display sprang to life above it. Images flashed before Harrison's eyes, star maps, technical diagrams, and finally, a message in the strange alien script that somehow, impossibly, he could now understand. "The Stygian Interdiction is not a weapon," he murmured, the words echoing in his mind as if someone, or something, was speaking directly to his consciousness. "It's knowledge. Knowledge they tried to erase but couldn't destroy completely." And in that moment, as the Valtheri closed in and Harrison prepared to detonate his final grenade, he understood why the ancient civilization had hidden the interdiction instead of using it themselves. It wasn't a simple weapon to be fired once and forgotten. It was a legacy, a carefully preserved record of the Valtheri's greatest weakness, hidden away for a future civilization brave enough to use it. Harrison smiled grimly as he pulled the pin. The knowledge was out now, carried back to Earth in Walsh's data drive. The Stygian Interdiction would echo once more through the void, and this time humanity would be its instrument. "Your turn," he whispered to the advancing aliens, and the world dissolved into fire and darkness. Echoes through the void. The Shadowfall limped through the debris field that had once been Earth's orbital defense platform Aegis. Dr. Moira Walsh stared out of the viewport, her face ashen as she took in the destruction. Lieutenant Rivers stood behind her, his normally stoic expression cracked with fatigue and grief. "Commander Harrison's sacrifice won't be in vain," he said quietly. "We made it back with the data." Walsh nodded, clutching the data drive that contained the coordinates to the remaining components of the Stygian Interdiction. The journey back to Earth had been harrowing. 2 more Marines lost during a skirmish with a Valkyrie patrol, and the Shadowfall's engines pushed far beyond their operational limits. But they had made it, only to find their homeworld under siege. Admiral Joe met them in the underground command center beneath what remained of Geneva. Her uniform was wrinkled, dark circles under her eyes betraying weeks without proper rest. "Dr. Walsh," she said, "I understand you have something that might turn the tide." Walsh connected her data drive to the central computer. "The Stygian Interdiction isn't a weapon, Admiral, at least not in the conventional sense. It's information, specifically, information about the Valkyrie that an ancient civilization collected and hid throughout our solar system." The holographic display flickered to life, showing a 3-dimensional map of the solar system with 4 points highlighted. Titan, where they'd found the first component. Europa, Jupiter's ice-covered moon, Venus's thick cloud layers, and finally a point in the asteroid belt. "According to what Commander Harrison discovered before." Walsh's voice faltered momentarily. "Before securing our escape, each component contains part of a biological and technological profile of the Valkyrie. Together, they reveal a critical vulnerability in their physiology and their ships." "Then we need to retrieve the remaining components immediately," Joe said, studying the map. "Unfortunately, our resources are stretched thin. The Valkyrie have established a blockade around Earth, and most of our remaining fleet is engaged in defending what's left of our colonies." "There's something else," Walsh added, pulling up a complex diagram that pulsed with strange alien symbols. "The components aren't just data storage, they're parts of a transmission system. Once all are activated, they'll broadcast a signal that will interface directly with the Valkyrie neural network." "A backdoor into their communications?" Joe asked, eyes widening. "More than that. The ancient civilization that created the interdiction discovered that the Valkyrie are essentially a hive mind, individual drones controlled by central command ships. The signal will temporarily disrupt their connection, rendering their forces inert for a short time." "Long enough for us to strike back," Joe finished. The plan was formed over the next 48 hours. With resources dwindling, Joe authorized the formation of 3 specialist teams, each tasked with retrieving one of the remaining components. Dr. Walsh would remain on Earth, coordinating their efforts and preparing to activate the interdiction once all pieces were secured. Lieutenant Darius Cole, a former Special Forces operative now serving as infiltration specialist for Earth defense, was assigned to the Europa mission. Cole had grown up in the underwater habitats of the Pacific Confederation before joining the military, making him uniquely suited for the mission to Europa's subsurface ocean. The UES Artemis, one of the few stealth vessels still operational, slipped through the Valkyrie blockade with Cole and his small team aboard. The journey to Jupiter took 12 days, each one bringing reports of further Valkyrie advances. Mars had fallen completely, its subsurface colonies destroyed. The Luna shipyards were under constant attack, and worst of all, the Valkyrie had begun landing ground forces on Earth itself. "Keep it together," Cole told his team as they prepared to descend to Europa's surface. "Every civilization has its weakness. We're about to find theirs." Their landing craft pierced Europa's icy crust at a point where it was thinnest, descending into the vast subsurface ocean beneath. The alien structure was deeper than they had anticipated, built into the ocean floor itself, a vast geometric complex that glowed with a faint blue luminescence. "Reminds me of the bioluminescent caves back home," Cole remarked as they navigated through the alien corridors. "Except, millions of years older and built by a species trying to save the galaxy from conquest." They encountered no Valkyrie defenses. Perhaps the aliens hadn't discovered this component yet, or perhaps they didn't consider it a threat. The central chamber contained another crystalline structure similar to the one Harrison had found on Titan, pulsing with the same inner light. While Cole's tech specialist worked to activate the component, he explored the surrounding chambers, finding walls covered in the same alien script. One chamber in particular caught his attention. A vast circular room with what appeared to be a three-dimensional model of a Valkyrie ship suspended in the center. "That's odd," he murmured, approaching the display. The model was incredibly detailed, showing not just the ship's exterior but its internal components as well. Among them was a peculiar structure located at the core of the vessel, a cluster of organic-looking filaments surrounding a pulsating central node. When Cole brought Dr. Walsh's attention to this discovery via their secure comms link, her excitement was palpable even across the vast distance. That must be their command nexus, the biological component that links the drones to the hive mind. While Cole's team secured the Europa component, the mission to Venus encountered complications. The Valkyrie had established a research outpost in Venus's upper atmosphere, directly above where the third component was hidden. The team, led by Major Eliza Wexler, had to fight their way through heavy resistance. They succeeded in retrieving the component, but at a devastating cost. Only Wexler herself survived to bring it back to Earth. The final component, hidden in the asteroid belt, proved equally challenging. The Valkyrie had converted several large asteroids into processing facilities, harvesting materials for their war effort. Captain Tomas Reyes and his team infiltrated one such facility, discovering the component hidden within an asteroid that the Valkyrie had not yet reached. Their extraction was nearly compromised when a Valkyrie patrol ship detected their presence, but Reyes made the decision to detonate their landing craft as a distraction, allowing the component to be smuggled out aboard an automated resource hauler bound for Earth. With 3 of the 4 components now secured, Dr. Walsh worked tirelessly to prepare for the activation of the Stygian Interdiction. The information they had gathered painted a clearer picture of their enemy. The Valkyrie were not a naturally evolved species, but a created one, biological constructs designed for conquest and assimilation, directed by vast living computers housed within their largest vessels. "They're a virus," Walsh explained to Admiral Joe and the gathered military leadership. "A self-replicating weapon created by a long-dead civilization to wage war on their behalf. But they evolved beyond their creator's control, turning on them just as they're now turning on us." "And the interdiction?" Joe asked. "A failsafe created by an alliance of species who fought the Valkyrie in the past. They couldn't defeat them completely, but they managed to drive them from this region of space and set up the interdiction as a warning system and defense mechanism for any future civilization that might face the same threat." As they prepared for the final phase of their plan, Cole arrived back on Earth, bringing with him the component from Europa and crucial information about the Valkyrie command nexus. "If we can disrupt these nexuses in their command ships," he explained, pointing to the holographic model, "we might be able to extend the effect of the interdiction indefinitely, rather than just the temporary disruption it was designed for." Walsh nodded thoughtfully. The original creators of the interdiction might not have had the capability to exploit that weakness fully, but with our current technology combined with what we've learned. The Proxima Centauri station, humanity's furthest permanent outpost and last remaining off-Earth stronghold, came under attack 3 days later. The Valkyrie brought an overwhelming force, 5 of their massive command ships accompanied by hundreds of smaller vessels. Earth's remaining defense fleet moved to intercept, knowing they were outmatched, but determined to buy time for the activation of the interdiction. Commander Alana Diaz, who had taken over Harrison's role as field commander of Operation Blacklight, led the defense personally aboard the UES Defiant. "All ships form up," she ordered as the Valkyrie fleet approached. "Remember, we don't need to win, we just need to hold them until the interdiction is ready." The battle that followed was among the most desperate in human history. Earth's ships fought with reckless courage, sacrificing themselves to protect the station and the civilians it housed. The Defiant took heavy damage early in the engagement, losing its main weapons array and half its crew, but Diaz refused to withdraw. "Status of the interdiction," she demanded, gripping her command chair as another impact rocked the ship. "Dr. Walsh reports 90% alignment," her communications officer replied. "They need 7 more minutes." Diaz looked at the tactical display, watching as another Earth vessel disappeared in a flash of light. 7 minutes might as well be an eternity. "All remaining ships converge on the largest Valkyrie command vessel," she ordered. "Target their forward section, full concentration of fire." It was a desperate gambit, but it worked. The combined firepower of Earth's remaining ships managed to breach the command ship's outer hull, exposing its interior to space. The Valkyrie responded by redirecting their forces to protect the damaged vessel, buying precious seconds for the Defiant and the other surviving ships. On Earth, Dr. Walsh and Lieutenant Cole worked frantically to align the components of the interdiction. Each one had to be calibrated precisely, their energy signatures matched to create a harmonized transmission that could penetrate the Valkyrie neural network. "Final alignment complete," Walsh announced, her fingers flying over the controls. "Beginning transmission in 3, 2, 1. The 4 components, spread across different locations on Earth, activated simultaneously. A pulse of energy that was neither electromagnetic nor gravitic in nature spread outward from Earth, invisible to human senses but devastating to the Valkyrie. In space, their ships suddenly faltered, their coordinated movements becoming erratic and disorganized. "It's working," Diaz exclaimed, watching as the Valkyrie fleet scattered in confusion. "All ships target the command vessel's nexus points as identified by Lieutenant Cole." Earth's remaining fighters and frigates darted between the now vulnerable Valkyrie ships, delivering precision strikes against the organic control centers that Cole had discovered. Without their connection to the hive mind, the Valkyrie drones were helpless, their ships drifting aimlessly or firing at random targets, sometimes even at each other. The battle turned decisively in humanity's favor. Within hours, the Valkyrie fleet at Proxima Centauri had been neutralized, their command ships destroyed, and their drone vessels rendered inert. Similar reports came in from across the solar system as the effect of the interdiction spread. But the victory was not without cost. The Defiant was lost with all hands during the final assault on the Valkyrie command ship, Commander Diaz choosing to ram her vessel directly into the alien nexus when her weapons failed. Proxima Centauri Station itself sustained heavy damage, and thousands of civilians perished when one section was breached by a stray Valkyrie attack. In the aftermath of the battle, as humanity began the long process of rebuilding, Dr. Walsh met with Admiral Joe and Lieutenant Cole in the ruins of what had once been Geneva's Grand Council chamber. Outside, reconstruction efforts were already underway, but the scars of the Valkyrie invasion would remain for generations. "The interdiction is still active," Walsh reported, studying data on her tablet. "But we've detected signals suggesting that more Valkyrie forces may be en route from nearby star systems. They'll have adapted their neural networks by the time they arrive. The same trick won't work twice." "Then we'll need to be ready with something new," Joe said firmly. "Lieutenant Cole, I'm promoting you to commander. You'll lead a new task force dedicated to developing advanced weaponry based on what we've learned from the Stygian Interdiction." Cole nodded, his expression solemn. "We should also extend our reach beyond the solar system. The civilization that created the interdiction must have had outposts elsewhere. There may be more knowledge waiting to be discovered." "Agreed," Walsh said, "and we need to establish contact with other species in our region of space. The interdiction creators formed an alliance to fight the Valkyrie. We should do the same." 3 months later, representatives from every surviving human colony gathered on Luna to sign the charter of the Terran Defense Alliance. a unified military and scientific body dedicated to protecting Earth and its colonies from future threats. At Admiral Joe's insistence, the first ship commissioned under the new alliance was named the UES Harrison, in honor of the commander whose sacrifice had given humanity its first hope. As the Harrison prepared for its maiden voyage, a mission to search for additional interdiction sites and potential alien allies, Commander Cole stood on the observation deck, watching as Earth slowly rotated below. Dr. Walsh joined him, her red hair now streaked with premature gray from the stress of recent months. "Do you think they'll be back?" she asked quietly. Cole nodded. "The Valkyrie have been conquering and consuming civilizations for millions of years. They won't stop because of one defeat." "But next time we'll be ready," Walsh said, a note of determination in her voice. "The Stygian Interdiction was just the beginning. We have their knowledge now, and we're already developing new weapons and defenses based on what we've learned." Cole turned to look at her, a faint smile crossing his face. "You know what Commander Harrison said to me once before the invasion? He said that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our military might. It's our adaptability, our ability to learn from our mistakes and from others." "He was right," Walsh replied. "The civilization that created the interdiction couldn't defeat the Valkyrie completely, so they left behind the tools for someone else to finish the job." As the Harrison's engines powered up and the ship prepared to depart for the unknown, Cole couldn't help but feel a sense of purpose stronger than anything he'd experienced before. The Valkyrie had tried to erase humanity from existence, just as they had tried to erase the knowledge of their weakness. But like the Stygian Interdiction, the echo of humanity's resilience would continue to resonate throughout the stars. "They tried to erase us," he murmured, watching as Earth receded into the distance. "But we're still here, and we're not going anywhere.